live in just 30 seconds. And then I will introduce you briefly, yeah?
Okay.
And I want to post this on the Facebook as well, and so just bear with me.
Same here.
Yeah. Okay, let me send the link to your messenger, and then you can share as well.
Okay.
We are already live.
Good.
Yeah. Must be 10 past 3 in Stolac, yeah?
Yes. 9. Okay, so I got a link.
Yeah. Please share it. I am also going to tweet, and then we can get into the discussion. Good evening. If you're listening for C Dialogue on Decolonizing Minds and Democratizing Knowledge series. If you're listening our dialogue today from Southeast Asia or Asia, good evening to you. But if you're listening this dialogue from Europe, good afternoon to you. I'm Zani. I'm hosting this dialogue series, and my very distinguished guest today is Demir Dimish.
Demir.
Yes, and I will let him say his own name so I don't butcher his name. He is
Okay.
a former leading activist with the anti-racist movement, civil rights and human rights movement in Bosnia called Dosta, or Enough. And he was also the co-founder of the UK's Islamic Human Rights Commission, and he was president of London or UK-based Bosnian Association, and he's back in his native Stolic in Bosnia, and he joined me from Stolic, and he continues to be very active in raising concerns about racism, genocide denial, and the signs of what he considered the attempt to dissolve the new Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so, Brother Dimek, thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts. And I am, as you know, from Burma or Myanmar. We have a similarly troubling conflicts that have come to threaten the the union of Burma, that it has been held together at gunpoint, like Yugoslavia in the past, perhaps far worse. And so there will be a lot of Burmese who are interested in what you have to share. So can you share your thoughts, particularly first your background, your proper pronunciation of your name, and then we'll get into the substance of our discussion, the warnings from the Balkans, genocide denial, the attempt at the dissolution of a Bosnian state, and the great powers, as you put it, in a small playground.
Well, first of all, good to see you. Even so, it's like this. We haven't seen each other face to face since conference on genocide against the Rohingyas in Berlin. But we spoke twice since then, and it's good to see you. You haven't changed a lot, and you're still in the full strength and full of power. I've been following situation in Myanmar, and unfortunately, I don't see the good things developing. Correct me if I'm wrong. as far as I'm concerned, my name is Demir Mahmut Cehajic. I'm 45 years old. I'm a qualified internet engineer, but for a very long time, I have not been working in my field. Since an early age, I've been active as a human rights activist, both in UK and then in Bosnia since 2005. But my main personal interest is research sites per se, and specifically concentrating on a genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For this reason, I have studied a lot, wrote a number of articles, attended a number of conferences, and with the intention to understand what is it in us humans that we are capable to do such evils, and what is it even more in us that we are not able to learn from those things that have happened in the past, genocides committed against always weaker communities, always communities that are not able to defend themselves, and always the communities that are not of great interest of any powers, not to talk about great powers. So unfortunately, those communities are throughout the histories of different religions, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different geographical positions, but the attempts on them and genocide committed against them, it follows the similar pattern. So it is good that we link our experiences, regardless of how far we are, because what is happening in Myanmar and what has been happening and what's happening with the Rohingyas and other communities, it is continuing on. So, you know, we need to raise awareness of wider humanity. We need to talk about it, because there is no way how we can, first of all, protect ourselves, and then help to protect weakers. Yeah. So to put the thing in a context for your listeners, my country, it was one of the 6 republics of former Yugoslavia. As former Yugoslavia was disintegrating, wars started happening. The stronger, most powerful, organized, military-controlled Greater Serbian nationalists that tried to keep as much of territory as possible, and they thought that because they are strong and organized and have all the weapons and the military units, that this would go easily for them. The idea of connecting a territory with ethnicity is the first step towards justifying a genocide, and the Greater Serbian ideologists have been working on it for years before the war, through the media and all other kind of channels, with the attempt of dehumanizing others who were on their way. So the wars in former Yugoslavia were definitely started by the strongest at that time, and they had an intention to create a greater Serbia on the remains of Yugoslavia. In the middle of this greatest greatest struggle were Bosnians, or to define it as a Bosnian Muslims. When we say Bosnian Muslims, when we say Muslims, there were very few religious people. You know, they were different from others just by name, certain cultural differences. We spoke same language, we understood each other, but we were others. Um, we were a target, because to create a pure nationalistic, fascist society, you need a target. Yeah? So the war was thrown upon us. It is a folly to say that you need two for a war. It's not true. You only need one for a war. Like, can you say that the Rohingyas are side in a war? They're not. So the same thing happened to us in 1992. We were attacked mainly by the organized military forces from and supported by the Serbia, helped by a local Serbian nationalist units, and then a year in the war, we were also attacked by the Croatian forces on the left. I'm simplifying things.
Let me just interrupt. I picked up on that point that you raised. It doesn't take two to create a war, but usually we look at conflicts as having two or more sides, and what you said but turns the conventional wisdom on its head, right? So because my own observation is genocides are not conflicts. Genocides are one directional warlike, violent, destructive efforts to destroy a targeted, as you said, usually and typically a weaker and vulnerable community that stands in the way of whatever strategic agenda that the stronger belligerent party might have. And so we are looking at the map of Yugoslavia or former Yugoslavia, right?
Part of it.
Yeah. Can you explain, you mentioned like you were attacked by Croatia, you were attacked by Serbian-backed, Serb militia. Can you say a bit about the ethnic makeup, roughly, of Bosnia and Herzegovina? Because we are looking at the same map, and it would be impossible to understand the Balkans without looking at the map and how.
So first of all, what I was saying about the beginning of the war and all this, I oversimplified it. It would take too long to go into details. It is not as simple as that. As far as the ethnic the spreading over the Bosnia and Herzegovina before the war, there were no ethnically clear areas.
So it's like a tapestry, right?
Exactly.
Different.
It was like a leopard skin. We used to call it the leopard skin.
Leopard skin. Yeah, I mean, yourself, like you're also part of Croatian as well, right? I mean, a lot of my friends and myself, like we have different, ancestries, but we choose to identify with one single ethnic group over.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And
unfortunately,
so,
I think that defining yourself as only belonging to one ethnic group or having a one identity is a very poor way of being a human being. Why should we limit ourselves to one anything?
That's right. That's right. Your mother was
my mom is a Croatian. She comes from the south of Croatia, okay. And my father is Bosniak from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, but this is not really relevant to the story, because if we go that much back, we're gonna miss the point of what's going on now. So right. I'm oversimplifying everything, and I'm quite sure that some listeners from this area would object to me going into such important issues in a simplified way, but it just would take too long. What I want to say is that before the war, the map that you are seeing now of Bosnia was not divided like this. Now you are seeing a map divided according to the entity lines. These are actually
I think like this is from a Dayton agreement, right?
Yeah, this is from
Ohio,
a Dayton
right?
peace agreement, and this map is a product, more or less, of the fighting lines. You know,
right?
So the what is this reddish color or whatever is this is showing most of the entity of Republika Srpska. The other, the bluish, is because the lines changed later on after the Dayton. Some of the land was swapped, and so this shows division of Bosnia and Herzegovina in two parts. One is entity of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, that is supposed to be Federation of Croats and Bosniaks, and the other one is the entity of Republika Srpska, that is supposed to be the entity of Serbs. The name says it itself. And then there is also a small part in a corridor up in the middle, up there. I'll show it with up here, that is called the district of Brčko, that it is being run jointly. It is being done in a way that it is not an entity, it's directly connected to the state. So within a federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are 10 cantons, and they are again organized on almost ethnic lines. And this is the crucial problem of the Dayton Peace Agreement, is that the Dayton Peace Agreement stopped fighting, but it did not tackle the roots of war. It treated all sides equal. It treated all those who organized, prepared for war, those who had genocidal ideology and strategy how to perform it, with those who were forced to defend themselves, and through the defense organized themselves. So it is, let's put it this way, it's like when Myanmar government and the military is saying, but they are fighting back, because a number of Rohingyas or Rakhines or anybody else is having a few organized military units trying to protect a small area and things like that. It's an unequal contest.
Yeah, the war. I mean, what one side more powerful, better organized, have a very strong state and military, and then the other side trying to defend their own communities. Right. This is these the aggressors and those on the receiving end of aggression cannot be placed on a more single moral plane. We cannot establish this like Donald Trump rhetoric of all sides, right? I mean, like, of course, resistance and the Nazis, they were in conflict, they were fighting, but the resistance was fighting for survival. Nazis were fighting for domination and genocide, right? So there's no moral parity in the narrative that you present, which I agree with.
Exactly. So what is happening now, and what's been brewing up for quite a long time, is because of these very important issues, these greater nationalistic appetites of both Croats and Serbs, and both Croatia and Serbia, have not been tackled in a right, just way. Two things happened. Is the reactionary Bosniak nationalism started growing up. That was also, and is still, very dangerous for a unity of the country. You know, there is a number of stirring up of feelings that are looking for a revenge, for return, so you know, it's like black racism can be explained as the reaction to white racism, but it's
Yes.
still racism.
Yes.
This is what I'm trying to say. So the Bosniak nationalism turning into fascism, it is started and stirred up, but it is going finally in the same direction. The international community did not do what it should have done and punished those perpetrators of genocide, analyzed and found the causes of it and removed them, and set this very small country on its path to heal itself. Instead of that, they imposed status quo with the Dayton Peace Agreement. And
this is
then
the Americans brokered this agreement in Dayton,
yes.
Ohio, right?
Yes, yes. So, you know, by allowing the status quo to go on for so long, those who perpetrated mainly and purposely all these horrible things, genocides, ethnic cleansing, destruction of the properties, dehumanizing process of others, they were allowed to absorb within their own community such a evil, and to turn around, instead of facing up with the evil that is being done in their name, they started, because they were given time, they started generating new generations, educating and building up new generations of people who glorified war crimes, war criminals, and are ready now to do the same things if necessary.
Right.
Yeah? So this is what I'm.
Carry on. Carry on.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. I can pull my question.
This is what I. This is why I'm actually raising a voice about this, because in the last year and a half, and especially in the last few months, we are seeing clear steps taken by the Greater Serbian nationalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are ruling and running entity of Republika Srpska within Bosnia and Herzegovina,
right?
And they are very cunningly supported by the Republic of Serbia, neighboring state,
right.
And also they have managed to develop relationships, very close relationships, with the various international players, factors, like Russia, like China,
right.
Hungary, right-wing extremists in Europe, and Israeli government.
Right.
So now they are on a march, and we feel that we are, again, when I say we, I don't mean in a purely Bosniak Muslim nationalistic way. I mean as a community that wants to live safe and secure in a Bosnia and Herzegovina, where there should be a place for everybody, regardless of any particular identity. All those who do not find themselves part of the close nationalistic, fascistic groupings are we. We find ourselves not heard. We find ourselves ignored. We find ourselves left aside by the international community again. And also, we find that we are part of the much greater game. much bigger game.
What
That
is what is the great power game that or games or game that is being played out in what you call a small playground, like you've got Russia, China, then like you also have Israel coming in, right? And then like you've got the ideological linkages with the populist right wing, uh, basically neo-fascists in Europe, right? I mean, Hungary is in the hands of a very, very nasty regime of Viktor Orban, right? That even
yes,
like the European Union, to start talking about kicking Hungary, suspending or kicking Hungary out because, the neo-fascism is not a thing for the European Union, right? That was supposed to be part of the old Europe of the Nazis, right? And so, what is the game that's being played out? What are the things that the great powers such as Russia or China want from your small country?
well, they actually don't want anything. That's the funny thing. It's we found ourselves in well, they do want something, but not in a way of interest, in a way of any particular interest. They want to poke each other here. They want to, especially Russia,
Right.
wants to use the ability to control part of the area that should be under the influence of NATO and Western countries, Western Bloc, because they are upset with the expansion of NATO towards its borders, and especially Russians are upset, that's what they say, with the prospect of Ukraine becoming a member of NATO. So all this massing of troops on the borders between Russia and Ukraine, all
And
this
then
diplomatic,
Belarus.
all this diplomatic wrangling now between Americans and Russians. Like today, you are having again a meeting between United States Foreign Secretary Blinken and Foreign Minister of Russia,
Lavrov.
Lavrov. They are, this tension is splitting over here because Russians are basically supporting the guys who in Bosnia and in this region who are basically saying we are pro-Russian
Right.
players. We don't care the fact that the Americans have put the sanctions on us. So the thing with the Bosnia is it is not a member of NATO. So it is not under the security protective umbrella of NATO. And but it's at the same time quite deep in NATO belly, because on one side you got Croatia that is a part of the NATO,
Yes.
and then you got Montenegro that is part of the NATO and everything. So it's a cheap way for Russia in a greater world struggle to have a card to play with.
Right. But where does Serbia stand in this geopolitical equation that you just
Serbia is officially claiming neutrality between blocks, but in a very pragmatic way. A current president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, is trying to play everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, and also you have this somewhat similar the situation with Ukraine in terms of ethnic makeup. You've got this the republic, a small republic within your country that is predominantly Serbians, right? The pink line that
it's not a small republic. It's an entity, and it has never been there until the Dayton Peace Accord was signed. It was created by the Dayton Peace Accord to stop the war. And it was not ethnically pure Serbian. It was cleansed throughout the war, through the genocide and through all these means. So it's now majority Serbian, but the area before was not so Serbian populated. The whole of the Bosnia was intermixed. We had
Right.
no areas as such that you can say, and also what Dodik and Serbian separatists are trying to get is exactly a legal way how they can leave Bosnia and Herzegovina. If they are a republic, if they are on that level within Bosnia and Herzegovina,
Right.
it would have been much easier for them. But it's not ruled. It's the legality of it. They don't have a right to separate. They don't have a right to seize the Bosnia. What they are doing is the continuing destruction of the state from within.
Right.
So when a state collapses, they will have their way out.
Right. Yeah. But also you mentioned like two other the uh, major powers, or particularly the China. Well, what is China's interest, and also like what is Israel doing in a small the Balkan the corners of the world?
Well, China is doing the same thing as it's doing everywhere else, is looking for its economical interests. So China is investing, giving loans, building, and it wants to have and wants to continue that. So some analysts argue that China's influence is more dangerous than the Russian. I particularly don't agree with that. I don't see China having any interest in stirring up troubles. They would like to buy off
Right.
everything,
Right.
like everywhere else.
The,
I don't see that intention. For example, the Chinese firms are building in Croatia, neighboring EU country. They're building a huge bridge. There are a number of infrastructural events that is happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina and a region with the Chinese money. So it's not the same power and the same interest as Russians have it.
right.
Russians are using a long-term apparent alliance with the Serbs, who are also Orthodox Christians as Russians,
Right.
that predates First World War. It goes back to the rebellions against Ottoman
Yes.
occupation and all this sort of things. It goes back 200 years or maybe a little bit less or more than that. And they are using that to have one of the leverages against NATO and a Western countries in its bargain for the position in Ukraine and its doorstep. So this is very easy to see. What Vucic, from a president of Serbia, is doing, he is playing a game of his own, where he's trying to be good with everybody. So he was very close to Angela Merkel. Now he is very close to Tayyip Erdogan from Turkey, but in a very, very cunning way. He's using this relationship to strengthen its position within Serbia, to bring in money, to bring in investments, and also to present himself as a peacemaker, as a peacekeeper, as the guy who understands everybody. But then through all these activities, he is building the case, like for a greater Serbian nationalism. Like just recently, he had a meeting with the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, where the idea of meeting of ethnic leaders was promoted, where the Tayyip Erdogan would represent Bosniak Muslims. It's crazy. It is this is exactly what I'm saying, is destroying the institutions of state, is destroying the state itself, is degrading it to every level. It's bringing us down to the tribal levels, where the chiefs of tribes meet. Why then? If this happens, it would prove that we don't need institutions, that we don't need, and we will just fall apart in in tribes.
Yeah,
The Israelis are very interesting story in all this. My personal opinion is that it is that the greatest Serb nationalists very successfully managed to jump on Israeli Islamophobic convictions, presenting it that they are struggling against the Muslim extremists in Bosnia and all these sort of things, and that they are more than welcome to come to Serbia and work with the Serbs. And this is a play very well played by the greatest Serbian nationalists, and it's just been shown recently in a report that has been asked for by the government of entity of Republika Srpska about the genocide in Srebrenica. Right. The guy who was put in charge of doing the research and presenting the report is an Israeli Holocaust academic, Gideon Grief, and then he presented in that report that he minimized the number of people killed. He presented it is the same number as the Serb lost in a similar area. And also he said that these guys who were killed were soldiers.
Right. So that you've got this Israeli Holocaust scholar that brought in to trivialize, to make small the genocide. And also apparently, if he's arguing that the number of people or the number of victims are rather small, right? Like, okay, in Srebrenica, maybe roughly 8,000. But, it just shows that he's not really a genocide scholar. No genocide scholar would talk about the size of the victim, because
but look,
genocides are not about the size of the population that's been decimated or destroyed. Yeah?
I agree with intention and the tools that are used with the means that are placed in to achieve the intention. So the intention, if the intention is proven, then the number of people killed should not matter, right?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But
we all know that.
But look,
go ahead, carry on.
International tribunal in Hague that was set up to investigate war crimes in a former Yugoslavia is doing exactly the same thing. The reason why genocide has been declared and judged only in Srebrenica, apparently is because in the other places the numbers of people killed were not large enough to constitute genocide. This is exactly what I'm trying to say in my paper, is that international community would like to solve the problem of Bosnia and Herzegovina by separating it according to the current lines of division, creating three different geographical systems. Then two of them would go away. One would be given to Serbia proper, another one to Croatia proper, and the third one would be very small, inhabited in the ghetto type of Gaza of remaining Bosniak Muslims. I'm convinced that the international community, when I talk about international community, I don't mean as a unified, but I mean as the main power brokers, deep down would like to see Bosnia gone.
Right. That's why you raised the issue of like the dissolution of Bosnia. And also you brought up the Turkish president,
let me just finish this and I'll come back to it. The only thing that is morally not allowing them to carry on with that is an issue of genocide. You know, the genocide is still protecting Bosnia as a state, you know, because it is immoral, even for such immoral international community, to allow that those who perpetrated genocide be rewarded, even
Right.
so that they are, you know.
Yeah, so there are a lot of like denials happening, as I understand it. There are cities where the mayors would be pushing for a resolution that denied that genocides happened, right, within Bosnia.
Yes.
Right? And then so, can you talk a bit more about the denial or the movements across Bosnia Herzegovina, to deny that genocide was the perpetrated against the Bosniaks or Bosnian Muslims primarily.
Well, just recently, and even that was not done by the democratically elected representatives in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The law that was changed in a way that denial of genocide is a criminal offense. This was brought in by the former High Representative of United Nations for Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we are still being treated as a protectorate,
right,
under the protection of United Nations. So we have an institution called High Representative of United Nations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he has the final says. He can remove the officials. He can bring in laws. He can cancel the decisions. You know, currently the German guy is a member of is a high representative. And we don't see activity from him which would stop these secessionist attempts and a secession path towards a secession. So the denial of genocide is an issue only since it became a criminal offense. Before that, public medias owned newspapers, graffitis, politicians, gatherings, songs. Everybody was allowed to do it because there were no required punishment for it. It's only recently that it became a criminal offense. And this is what was used by the greatest Serbian nationalists, saying is that it was prescribed criminal offense in illegal manner by the decision of the high representative rather than by the elected representatives. You know, it is just an excuse. So they are saying that all this that they are doing, transferring of competencies from the state level to the entity level, because that's the process of legalizing and legitimizing and bringing up entity to become like a state and destroying a state. Mm-hmm. The excuses for doing it, they are presenting it because of this law that was brought in by the high representative.
Right. The Bosnian state, as I understand from your talk and from my other own readings, is it's supposed to be obviously multi-ethnic. You've got Serbians, you've got Bosnian Muslims, Bosniaks, right? But the Bosnian state is perhaps seen through the eyes of Islamophobic sectors, right? You talk about Israeli involvement is ideological because Israel is not pursuing economic interests the way China is, right? And Israel is also not concerned about the strategic value of Bosnia the way Russia would be concerned about, right? Because of NATO expansion on the Croatian side and whatnot. So the identity of Bosnian state is seen as a Muslim state, although it's then you've got the uh, Orthodox Christians, in the Serbia, next door, and then you've got Orthodox Christians in Russia and Belarus, maybe. They so Are you saying that that identity is framed falsely as a threat to, other non-Islamic communities, Jewish, Orthodox Christians, and others, and then the Bosnian state serve as a protective institution with, the laws and, the law enforcement agencies, as well as police, armed forces, and whatnot?
In current and a very long ongoing Islamophobic atmosphere all over the world, it is easiest way to present somebody as a Muslim extremist or a Muslim state or a Muslim society, to bring a large number of people by default on your side and against those who you. This is the Islamophobic approach.
Right.
So presenting Bosnia as a Muslim state is the sure way of how to bring the people aside, saying it, well, we should not be forced to stay within a Muslim state. We should be allowed to leave. We should be allowed to have our own state.
So that's where, like, the
entity
Zapta, yeah. What is the entity called?
Sorry?
The entity within the Republic of Bosnia Herzegovina.
Republic of Srpska.
Srpska, yeah, that's the one that wants to secede and
yes.
and then join with the Serbia and become greater Serbia, right?
So you see the guy who is representing Serbs in a joint presidency, he's the main greatest Serbian nationalist. He stopped using the official name that represent one nation, one people, not nation, a people, a group, a tribe, call it whatever you want. Bosniak. He stopped using it name Bosniak, and he's deliberately calling us Muslims because this is Islamophobic branding.
Right.
When you constantly repeat Muslims,
that's right.
Muslims in Islamophobic world where we are living,
right?
He knows where he's going with that. He's turning around and saying, "You're forcing us to live with those Muslims."
Right. We have a similar situation in Rakhine State right now. As you very well know, you spoke in solidarity with Rohingya.
Yes.
Not simply because
if you remember, one of the diplomatic apparent successes of the former USA President Donald Trump was bringing in Muslim states in diplomatic relationships with Israel.
Right.
So one of the those states that he presented as a Muslim is Kosovo. Now this was for him presented as a success, a Muslim European state establishing diplomatic relationship with Israel. But the Muslimness of Kosovo is overshadowed by the Albaniness, ethnic belonging of the people over there. And the religious belongings, both in Bosnia and in other areas, is a second to the need of institutions, states that would preserve everybody. We currently in Bosnia, we have a huge discrimination. We have a huge systematic discrimination against Romas.
Roma,
these Jews,
right.
because by law they cannot candidate themselves for certain positions. So there are even rulings from international courts saying that this is discrimination. But even worse is a direct discrimination on the ground of Romans as a community. Nobody talks about them.
Right.
And nobody cares what religion they are. They are of
Right.
different religions. Here we are being played at by the forces within sight, using very smartly all these modern phobias for their ends. And also we are being played by the greater players, who we are just a small geostrategical dot on a map that is relevant, excuse me, it's relevant regardless of what is happening on the other side of the map. There are other players that are in the plain language simply stupid at best,
Right.
or are having some other agendas at worst, like Turkey, for example, and
Right.
a Turkish president
Right.
who is having an excellent economical relationship with Serbia. Turkey is investing much more in Serbia than in Bosnia. They are treating a part of the Bosniaks, as brothers.
Right.
They're calling us, or they're saying that we are brothers because we are of same faith. But at the same time, they don't understand that that's exactly the game that those who want to destroy Bosnia like Turkey to play. Let the Bosnia down on a tribal areas.
Right.
So we have Serbs as the tribes, we got the Bosniaks as the tribes, we got Croats as the tribes, Romas, nobody cares about the Romas, other minorities, nobody cares about them. And this is what a Turkish president is not understanding. On the other side, within a Bosniak community, there's been for so long such an endemic corruption that they actually are not capable to understand what's going on. They are living completely isolated from the ordinary people. And what they are doing is using genocide to stay in power.
Right.
Similar way as the Zionists abused the Holocaust.
Right.
They are using genocide to stay in the power. But this again doesn't mean that the genocide didn't happen.
Right.
As the same way as it doesn't mean that the Holocaust didn't happen, because some bad guys are using it for their own means.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it could not happen again.
Right.
If it happens, who is it going to be on the receiving end?
Right.
Not the rich Bosniaks,
right,
who are going to run away or hide or buy protection.
right.
They're going to be, the receiving end is going to be poor people.
Right.
And this
Yeah,
is why
that's
I'm
always
picking up.
the case. Yeah. I want to pick up on the Turkish angle because like back in July last year, there was this Bosnian activist sister from Srebrenica who spoke on the same panel with me at the this like biannual conference at Auschwitz, and she was saying that obviously that her family, like yours, also suffered, and that she stayed, and then she lost her teenage brother taken away to shoot, to be executed. And so she said they have been called during those dark years of genocide, the Bosnian Muslims were called you were Turks, and she said because that the Ottoman Empire existed some 100 years 200 years ago, it was dissolved, right, on the eve of the First World War. And she was saying we had nothing to do with Turks. So why do you call us Turks, right? So like they're trying to make you uh, feel that you don't belong there. You know, go back to Turkey
But
kind of thing.
you
And
know,
then like
but
Erdogan's also has this like, you know, megalomania that, you know, the Turkey is the greatest, you know, Muslim country, wants to reclaim at least like, you know, the imperial identity of the old Ottoman, right? And so that's why like you've got this, you know, tribal the identity being pushed by the, you know, non-Muslims, and then like being embraced by the imperially minded guys like Erdogan from, you know, Turkey, right? So you are caught in between. You're saying you've got your own nationality, which is Bosniak, but you are nationals of Bosnia.
but even that is not important. The individual identity is not important. What needs to be important is institutions, state that is functioning, that is protecting its citizen, that is enforcing its laws, that is able to defend itself from meddling inside. That you know we are seeing an attempts by all sides of destroying the institutions, and this coming on top of the fact that post-war Bosnia Herzegovina was not able to develop a proper democracy because we are having rigged elections, we are having a division of electoral areas according to, again, control by the ethnicity. So this goes much deeper in it. What you mentioned about that lady attending a conference with you, I can sort of connect it with the way that the Myanmar junta is denying Rohingyas' right to live in its land because they are saying they are not one of the people in a history that were part of the Burma or that they arrived. They used all kind of excuses, but we're talking about human beings. You know, it's the same way. So if you are finding reasons that somebody is less worthy or more worthy, that's where we got a path towards a genocide. So the
Right.
same way how the systems are treating people in movement or migrants or Romas
Right.
or Rohingyas or Bosniaks, it doesn't matter. You know, in cases, it's not even racism, pure racism. You know, some of my friends are saying that capitalism is the one who is basically driving all this perpetual racism, perpetual discrimination, perpetual war, killing for its own purposes. I'm not that smart to go into that depth. What I am dealing with and looking at and trying to learn from is experiences from the past, comparing it to the situation that is happening at the moment, and warn about where is it leading to.
Right. Yeah.
And what I'm
Yeah. So
seeing now,
where do you think is your country heading now? You know, with the you know, becoming a playground for outside geopolitical interests, and
well, what
then
I'm
like you're
seeing,
having a nativist, you know, ethno-nationalist movements, you know, re-emerging. You've got the greater Serbian nationalists who deny genocide, and then you've got the reactive type of, you know, Bosniak nationalism, you know, trying to respond and react to the Serbian nationalism from within the borders and across the Serbian borders. Where do you think Bosnia is heading now?
well, what I argued in my report, in my research that you read it, and you know, it was a sparkle for this conversation, this meeting, is that starting from the genocide denial, is moving towards a state dissolution. So the only thing that is currently protecting, in my opinion, a unity of Bosnia and Herzegovina is rulings on genocide. The forces that want to disintegrate Bosnia and Herzegovina do it for various reasons. Some do it for ideological, some for nationalistic, some for fascistic, some for purely economical. There are views that Dodik, the leader of Serbs in Bosnia, or a Serb member of the joint presidency, is doing all this to protect his criminal empire. But this is not important for the Bosnia itself. What he is doing it from transferring competencies from the state level to the entity level is a building new state. And I believe that he has already started the process of cessation from the Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Right.
The constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina has already been seriously attacked, and nobody is doing anything about it.
Right.
International community is not doing anything about it. So he carry on with the process. He is smart enough not to go into open conflict, but he's bringing up allies from all over the world, from left and right and everywhere in that process. The fact that I think that he is smart enough not to go into open conflict because he could lose a lot, it doesn't mean that the open conflict could not happen, because you have a brewing of sensitivities and reactionary nationalism on the other side. Who is it to guarantee that some of the still living victims of genocide, who are suffering very huge PTSPs, number of people, would not be provoked into certain actions,
right,
on this such a provocations, and for trouble to start, you don't need much, they already have administrative borders. They can bring their police on those borders and say, we are just protecting ourselves from those crazy Muslims,
right.
And also, it's not true that you need an army, it's enough to employ 100, 150, 200, 1,000 professional soldiers, like Wagner army was fighting all over the Syria and everywhere, and to create the troubles, right, everywhere, So I'm warning everybody. That for too long we've been left on our own, while at the same time, through the various tools, Western so-called democracy has corrupted both individuals and the groups within Bosnia and Herzegovina to the level that we are having nobody from within Bosnia to lead this fight for the unity of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and there are so many unknowns coming on, but there are moral knowns, is that this should not be allowed. We should not be scapegoats just because we are weak.
Right.
We should not be humiliated. We should not be, when I say we again, I'm saying all of us living in Bosnia and Herzegovina who decided not to be part of the fascist camps. We should not be left on our own, defenseless. We should be heard, and we should spread the message that once again, humanity is at test. I personally am not expecting anything from United States, from United Nations, from any of these players that I mentioned. I don't expect any help, any support from Turkey, from any Muslim country, just because we are Muslims. I don't expect that anybody would help us. We are too small, too insignificant, too weak to be important to anybody. But we should be important to humanity.
Exactly.
And this is why this conversation between two of us is extremely important. And I hope that many people from all over the world listen to each other, because the same thing is happening to us. You know, it's happening all over the places. Look what happened to Afghanistan just recently. They left it after 20 years, like, you know.
Yeah, Afghanis are starving, right? The Americans are not releasing the money, right?
Do you get
you know,
do you get the media reporting about Afghanis starving?
yeah,
Do you see what is happening in Yemen?
You know,
Do
Channel
you
4.
see what is happening in Yemen?
Yeah.
The richest states are attacking the country that is brought back into Stone Age.
Yeah, that's right. Saudi Arabia and UAE with the British weapons.
You know, and then we are surprised because the Palestinians cannot get their rights.
Right.
No, we should not be surprised. We constantly have tests for humanity that we are failing at, you know, and this is, if nothing, we should talk about it, you know, warn about it. That
yeah, I think that the Burmese themselves, have discovered that we can expect any messiah or savior or external actors to come and rescue us from our own oppressive regimes, and so they are fighting. And so I think that is why, like, I wanted to have your voice amplified, and I promise I'll do everything I can.
And I thank you so much.
Yeah, to make sure that, I think, like, we should write this up and try to get it translated into different languages. And as you said, we have other fellow humans to turn to for solidarity, any type of solidarity and support, because the United Nations, starting from the Security Council, has been a major failure if you are part of the oppressed national community, whether you're Uyghurs or Rohingyas or Burmese or Palestinians or Yemenis. And so, but the final thought, and then we will bring this to a close, and then I will write it up to get more traction out of this, and then we should try to get your essays published in different places as well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks. Any final thought before you leave?
Well, first of all, I would truly like to invite you on 9th of May in Stolac, where as I said, we're going to have a regional anti-fascist gathering. We need to realize that neoliberal capitalist powers are not interested in preserving human dignity of anybody. We need
lives,
to organize.
For that matter.
Sorry?
For that matter, human lives. No humans.
Human lives are nothing for them.
Yeah, exactly. They're interested in money and control.
Exactly. Yeah. So the final thought is that we should continue linking. We should continue getting closer. We should continue spreading solidarity, spreading words, helping each other fight racism with a clear understanding who on the other side is, and that's basically it. I mean, what else can we do except this?
Yeah, thank you, brother Dimur. You have been listening to Dimish, to one of the leading, the anti-racist, anti-fascist civil rights spokesperson and activist with 20 plus years of experience. And also, I thank you specifically for calling attention to the discrimination against Roma community. It happened all over the Europe. So we will speak again. And thanks so much again. And you have a good evening. And I will definitely try to visit Stolac and Srebrenica in May. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. Yeah, take care. Yeah.
All the best, my friend. All
Yeah,
the best.
thank you.